I can't see the bottom. And the ferry's moving quickly enough that I really don't want to think what would happen if I went in. There's nothing obviously wrong with the water. No storm, no enormous waves, no creature waiting just beneath the surface. Just this huge dark space underneath me. And honestly, I hate it. I came here to investigate my fear of deep water, but I'm beginning to wonder whether the water is only part of the story. Hey everyone, it's Meredith Castles. Welcome back to the channel. I've always known that I don't really enjoy deep water. I don't find swimming particularly fun and interesting. I'm not someone who looks at the ocean and thinks that would be a great place to spend the afternoon. But shallow water's different. If I can see the bottom, I know where I am. I know what I'm looking at. I have some idea of how deep the water is, and when the bottom disappears, that's when everything changes. When I was at school, I learnt to kayak on the Derwent River, the river out there. And as part of the course, we had to paddle across the river and deliberately capsize our kayaks in the deepest section, which is a very effective way to discover whether you're comfortable with deep water. I remember being underwater and knowing that there was an unimaginable amount of water just above my head. That was the part that frightened me, not just being underwater, not even necessarily the possibility of drowning. It was the knowledge that I was surrounded by something enormous, and I couldn't see where it ended. I could feel the water around me, but I couldn't properly understand the space I was in. And I think that feeling stayed with me because I've always been fascinated by maritime archaeology, shipwrecks, underwater cities, the Titanic. I'd love to really go and explore those places. It'd be amazing. The problem is, I don't want to get there. I'm a user experience researcher and a lifelong horror enthusiast, so I've always been fascinated by what unsettles us. In this series, I investigate my own fears through science and see what they reveal about being human. The word people usually use for this fear is thalassophobia. It describes a fear of the ocean or deep water, and it makes sense that deep water would unsettle people. We can't see properly through it, we can't easily judge its depth, and we don't have a complete picture of the environment around us. But there's an important distinction here. Feeling uncomfortable in deep water isn't automatically the same as having a clinical phobia. Thalassophobia isn't a separate diagnosis listed by the DSM. Clinically, a fear of water would usually sit under a category called a specific phobia, natural environment type. That category includes fear of things like heights, storms, and water. Researchers don't usually measure thalassophobia as its own separate condition. Instead, they tend to study broader categories of specific phobias or ask people about specific fears and situations. That's one reason there isn't a reliable number for how many people specifically have thalassophobia. In the United States, around 9% of adults experience a specific phobia in any given year, and around 12% experience one at some point in their lives. But those figures include all kinds of specific phobias. They don't mean that 9 out of 12% of people have thalassophobia. In one large international study, fear of still water was reported by around 2% of people. But again, that doesn't mean 2% of the world has thalassophobia either. Fear, discomfort, and a clinically significant phobia are not exactly the same thing. For a fear to be considered a phobia, it generally needs to be persistent, disproportionate to the actual danger, and strong enough to cause significant distress. Avoidance, disruption to everyday life, something like that. So having a horrible feeling when I look into a deep water doesn't automatically make me clinically phobic, but it does give me something very real to investigate. It's also interesting that thalassophobia and claustrophobia can almost feel like opposites. Claustrophobia involves being in a space that feels too enclosed, while thalassophobia can involve being surrounded by too much open space. One is too little room, the other is an environment that seems almost impossible to contain. But both can involve a similar underlying feeling, being trapped in an environment you can't easily understand, control, or escape. Our brains are constantly trying to predict what's going to happen next. Normally, that works pretty well. We see a chair and we understand what that chair is. We see a path and we can make a reasonable guess about where it leads. But deep water gives us very little useful information. The surface tells us one thing, the space beneath it could be completely different. And when our brains can't competently predict an environment, uncertainty can start to feel like a danger. Not because there's definitely something dangerous there, because we don't know enough to rule it out. At the wharf, the water is shallow enough that I can see the bottom, and there's something reassuring about that. It might not be clean, it might contain a great deal of rubbish, but at least the mystery has boundaries. I did find a high-heeled shoe though, which raises a completely different question about what happens after a night out in Hobart. Maybe this is where the fear of deep water begins though, or maybe this is simply where old shoes go to retire. But just a short distance away, the water drops off, the bottom disappears, and suddenly the same river feels completely different. This is a deep tidal estuary. It's large enough that I can't see across every part of it, and deep enough that I can't see what's beneath me. And once I lose sight of the bottom, the number almost stops being useful. I can't really picture tens of meters of water, or 20 meters, or anything deeper than that. I can only picture not being able to see the bottom. So I wanted to test what actually triggers the fear. Is it the water? Is it the possibility of drowning? Is it what might be underneath me? Any monsters or creatures of the deep? Or is it simply just not knowing where the bottom is? When I can see the bottom, I might still feel uncomfortable, but I feel oriented. I know how far away it is. I know what kind of space I'm in. I can look at the rocks and the weeds or the rubbish or the shoes and understand the environment around me. But when the water becomes dark or opaque, that information disappears. I'm no longer looking at a surface with something underneath it. I'm looking at a surface hiding an entire world. And my brain has to make a decision about what might be there. It doesn't know, so it starts imagining. Not necessarily monsters, not necessarily anything specific, just possibilities. The water could be deeper than I expect. Something could move beneath me. I could lose my sense of direction. I could be surrounded by a space I can't properly map. And the more information disappears, the more powerful the fear becomes. The strange thing is, I know the water is probably safe. I know that there's no reason to assume there's anything unusual underneath me. I know that that fear is coming from my own reaction to the environment. But knowing that doesn't make the feeling disappear. The fear arrives before the rational explanation. I look down, I can't see the bottom, and so my body reacts first. So what did we learn? I think I probably do have thalassophobia, or at least I have a very strong fear response to a deep ocean or deep water. And coming back here has helped me understand why. It simply isn't that the water is deep. It's that I can't see, measure, or mentally map the space beneath me. The surface looks calm, but it's hiding something enormous. And for me, that's where the fear begins. It's not necessarily a fear of creatures. It's not proof that something's down there. It's the discomfort of not knowing what kind of environment I'm actually looking at. I came here thinking that I was making a video about thalassophobia. I think I understand that fear a little better now. But while I was filming, I had an uncomfortable thought. This might not be the whole story. Thalassophobia explains why deep water frightens me, but it might not explain why the feeling seems to be so much bigger than the water itself. I'm not ready to draw that conclusion yet. I don't want to pretend I've answered a question I haven't properly asked yet. So this is where I'll leave the water for now. But I don't think this is the end of the investigation. There may be something else hiding behind this feeling. Something bigger. But now it's getting darker. I'm looking out over the River Derwent there, where it all happened. And I'm starting to realise the fear is rooted in something much, much deeper. Much more vast. The investigation continues next time on Science of Fear. Subscribe if you want to follow the investigation. Stay tuned.